Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be making a very special Warhammer diorama. So let's get started. So for the base of our diorama today, we will be using a little tea coaster. So after a quick reload, we can mask up and start cutting. Now with the diorama all cut up, it's time to add all of these little resin bits and start shaping up the terrain of the diorama with some air drying clay. We can use our body temperature of our fingers to let it mould to the foam, as well as some water to smooth all of those details out. With that out of the way, we can glue on some little rocks, which will make some nice added texture to the diorama as we're making a nice desert diorama. And of course, who can forget our cheeky banners? With all of the bits glued down, we can move on to adding all of our sand to the diorama. For this, we'll be using some watered down PVA or white glue, followed by sprinkling some sand. Then some isopropyl alcohol on top, and more sand. I did this step 3 times in total, and while not fun, it does have a nice look. Then once that was done, it's time to add all of these spooky skulls. And oh boy, did I wish I did this step before. Man, I cannot tell you how hard it was to get those skulls stuck down. A lot of super glue, patience. We got there in the end though. And after priming this diorama, it's time to paint the one and only Skeletor. We're going to be painting him a fabulous red cape, starting with AK Matte Red with a reasonably diluted for about 2 to 3 coats, as this will make a nice smooth transition to the brighter highlight we'll be using later on. Now I've always found red one of the hardest colours to paint, but I'm so happy how this will turn out in the future, at least for my beginner amateur level of painting. Once the first red was down, it's time for our second coat. We'll be using Mephiston Red from Games Workshop, which will be a really nice rich contrast to the other paint we used before. Now when putting this paint down, I'm really trying to emphasize where the highlights would be, so the tips of the cloth, and trying not to get any in the recesses. This is our mid-tone, so it's not too bad if you get this anywhere else. We're just layering on that nice bit of highlights. While our mid-tone paint is still wet, it's time to move on to our final red, Blood Red, from AK Interactive. For this is really going to emphasize those extreme highlights. I did small lines and slightly stippled onto the edges of the cloak, folds and edges. This will add that really nice bright red texture. You could also use really thin lines to emphasize certain points. Now we can move on to my favourite part, painting metallics. For the silver, we are using Scale 75's Black Metal, which I honestly think is the nicest, juiciest metallic out there. And for this, we're going to paint all of his armour, apart from his upper breastplate and chainmail, in this silver. And also let me know if you want to see more dioramas like this in the comments, and what universe you'd like them to be in. And for these areas, we are going to be using Decayed Metal, a lovely burnt coppery gold, another one of my favourites. And now it's time to paint all of the other little bits in many shades of brown. For these leathery parts, you can literally use whatever. I chose black and browns. I think the only hard part was contrasting his eye patch to his hair using both the same black, but I think it works. It looks quite nice. Oh, and one of the best skeleton wash mixes is some Nuln Oil mixed some Sephirim Shade 1-to-1, and oh my gosh, this is the best skeleton paint you could ever use. Next, we're going to add a bit more contrast to the armour. We're going to shade it down with some Nuln Oil to add some darker recesses. Basically to make it look a bit more shadowy and some nice colour variation. We can then add some highlights with some bright silvers and golds on top, to make it nice and shiny like it's reflecting the sun. So recently I received a really cool package. This is not sponsored in any way, by the way, but I did want to give them a quick shout out because it's a really cool modular paint system. It's got a wet palette, water pot, and lots of storage. And it's got a really cool rubber bottom to clean your brushes, as well as it holds your brushes once you're done with them. I've never been so excited about a water pot, but there you have it. I'll leave a link below. It's not affiliated in any way, I don't make any money from it. But you can check out their Kickstarter to find out more. I've been having a great time with it. So next it's time to paint the diorama, and for the majority of this I'm going to be using an airbrush because that would take me days otherwise. I mean, it still did take me days for some reason, but the airbrush really does help out. For the scene, I wanted white sand and dark brown rocks to make some nice contrast. I always find sandstone rocks look a lot more natural, but it can make the scene blend in a bit too much, and that's something I really need to work on in the future, but for now these brown rocks will do. So let's carry on painting. This is always the part of the diorama where I get distracted, forget about it for a day or two, but all that's left to paint are the bones, banners, and foliage. I also gave the rocks a nice orange dry brush and some highlights on top. Later on I also give the banners some different shades using contrast paints like some blues and greens. But for this diorama, in my mind, this skeleton is a powerful necromancer, sacrificing his flesh and body to learn these forbidden arts. He travels to these ancient battlegrounds, slowly raising his army from the dead. And this got me to the point of gluing him down, and I realised I didn't blend it in at all, so after some quick fixing, it is finally done! I hope you enjoyed this little video, and make sure to give it a cheeky like and sub, and make sure to let me know in the comments what you want to see next. As always, I've been Reese, and I'll catch you in the next one.